They never meant to fall for
You
each
always
other,
make it
but
hard to
one secret,
choose.
one moment, and one choice pushed
That's why
them
you're
past a
here.
point of no return. I never meant to
You
stay as
always make it
long as
hard
I
to
did.
choose.
I just stopped by her cafe to return a book she'd lent me,
Yes.
some old
Uh,
paperback with her
that's why you're
handwriting in the
here.
margins. But the moment I stepped inside, the world outside seemed to quiet down in a way that made it impossible to leave. The place was almost empty, the late afternoon light stretching across the wooden tables like it had chosen them on purpose. And there she was behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned loosely like she'd been fighting with it all day and finally surrendered. She looked up when the bell over the door chimed. "Back already?" she asked, voice soft, like she was trying not to let something slip through it. I held the book up. I figured I shouldn't keep something that has your handwriting in it for too long. Her mouth curved, barely a smile, more like she was trying to hide one. She wiped her hands on her apron, even though they were already clean, and leaned her hip against the counter. "You didn't have to rush it," she said. "Most people take weeks. Maybe I'm not like most people." That made her laugh under her breath, and she shook her head, looking down as if that would steady her. It didn't. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she curled her fingers against the counter like she needed something solid. "Coffee?" she asked. I nodded, and she started preparing it, slowly, almost too carefully like she needed the extra seconds. I watched the way she moved, deliberate, focused, but with tiny hesitations when she realized I was still looking. "You're staring," she murmured without turning around. "You always say that," I replied, "and you keep pretending you don't like it." She paused, just a beat too long, before sliding the cup toward me. "Drink your coffee," she said, but her voice was warmer now, softer around the edges. I took the mug and sat at the small table near the window, the one she always wiped twice even when it was already spotless. She followed a moment later, untying her apron and tossing it on the nearby chair. She sat across from me, but not fully. She angled her body, half facing the window, half facing me, like she wanted an escape but wasn't ready to use it. "You read the last chapter?" she asked. "Yeah." And I shrugged, even though it had hit harder than I expected. It felt like the author didn't want them to end up together, but he couldn't help it. She breathed out a quiet laugh. "Life's like that. I don't think life makes it that easy." "It doesn't," she said, eyes still on the window, though her knee brushed mine under the table. Lightly but intentional. "But some people make the choice anyway." I swallowed, the room suddenly too warm. Her gaze drifted toward me, not fully meeting mine, just hovering close enough to make the air feel charged. "You always make things sound simple," I said. She smiled, only with her eyes. "You always make it hard to choose. That's why you're here." The words landed between us like something fragile. She didn't pull them back. I didn't breathe for a second. Her fingers tapped, once against the table. A quiet, restless rhythm. "I didn't mean," she began. But then her voice cut off, sharp and startled, as her phone lit up on the table. A name flashed on the screen. She didn't touch it. She just stared at it, and then slowly, finally, lifted her eyes to mine. "Do you want to know who that is?" she asked. Her voice wasn't steady anymore, and that's where everything shifted. The name on her phone still glowed between us, bright enough to make everything else in the cafe feel dimmer. She didn't reach for it. She didn't silence it. She just watched it until the screen went dark again, leaving a thin silence hanging in the air. I finally exhaled. "You don't have to tell me." She tilted her head slightly, almost amused, almost sad. "I know. That's why it matters." She didn't explain. Not yet, but something in her posture loosened, like the secret had been sitting on her for too long. I leaned back, trying to look casual, though my pulse wasn't cooperating. I'd known her for 8 months, ever since I started coming to her cafe to study, then to talk, then for reasons I pretended not to think about. She always acted like I was too young to notice things, but she never pushed me away either. "You ever gonna tell me why you work so late?" I asked, forcing a lighter tone. She smiled at her hands. "Habit. And maybe I like the quiet at night. Quiet or solitude." Her gaze flicked up at me, sharp, aware. "Is there a difference?" "For some people. For you." I looked away. "Solitude is something I got used to." "Used to," she repeated softly, like she was testing the words. "Not preferred." I didn't deny it. The truth was, before her cafe, my nights were a loop of part-time work, unfinished assignments in a small, dusty room in my uncle's place. No one asked where I went. No one cared when I came back. I'd been drifting since my parents split, since everyone started expecting me to figure things out before I even knew what I wanted. She broke the silence first. I wasn't always alone, you know. My eyes met hers. I had a husband, she said, fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. No ring, no tan line, nothing left. We divorced 3 years ago. He said I'd grown distant. She gave a tiny, humorless laugh. I said he never noticed I was there in the first place. I felt something tighten in my chest. So when that call comes in, she continued, nodding toward the abandoned phone. It's not him. It's my daughter. I blinked. Your daughter. She worries when I don't pick up. But if I do pick up, she starts asking who I'm with. She looked at me with something like apology. She hates the idea of me being with anyone, especially someone younger. There it was. The risk we both dodged naming. And you? I asked quietly. What do you think about it? She inhaled slowly, her shoulders rising then easing. I think, her voice thinned. I think I stopped deserving uncomplicated things a long time ago. I frowned. You don't actually believe that. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The sorrow lingered in the small tremor of her fingers, in the way she stared at the wood grain instead of at me. I reached across the table before I realized I'd moved. My hand rested near hers, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from her skin, close enough for her to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Instead, her pinky brushed mine. Not fully, just enough. A tiny, deliberate drift, like she was giving a quiet answer to a question neither of us had dared to ask yet. The cafe door didn't open, nobody walked in, but something still shifted, like the room caught its breath. Her pinky against mine felt too warm, too intentional, too dangerous. She pulled back first. Not suddenly, not with panic, just slow enough to hurt. We shouldn't, she murmured, a whisper shaped like a warning, or maybe a regret. I sat back, pretending it didn't sting as much as it did. Because of your daughter? Because of everything, she said. My age, your age. People talk. People assume things. And she broke off, pressing her thumb against her lower lip for a second. I'm not sure I can survive people assuming things again. I leaned forward. Who says they get a say? Her laugh came thin, like paper tearing. You talk like you're not 20, and you talk like you're too old to want anything. That made her look at me sharply, not angry, more like I'd peeled back something she'd been hiding behind. Before either of us could say more, the door finally did open. A gust of cold air swept in, and a man stepped inside. Early 50s, suit, jacket half unbuttoned, expression somewhere between irritation and fatigue. She stiffened. He noticed her immediately. I figured you'd be here. Her ex-husband. He didn't look at me yet. He only looked at her, scanning her face like he expected to find something wrong. You missed the check-in call, he said. Your daughter's upset. I'm allowed to live a life, she replied, though her voice had lost its softness. You're allowed, he said slowly, but maybe not this late. His gaze finally shifted toward me and stayed there. And him. She didn't answer. I did. Just a customer. He let out a low sound. Disbelief. Judgment. Something sour. Sure. He turned back to her. You know how it looks, right? That's none of your business anymore. Not mine, he agreed. But it will be hers. He meant her daughter. The invisible witness looming over everything. His phone rang. He glanced at the screen. She's waiting for you. She closed her eyes for a moment, something folding inside her. When she opened them, the warmth she'd had with me was gone, replaced by a tired, practiced calm. I'll be there soon, she said. He nodded once and walked back out, the door swinging shut behind him. Silence settled again, but this time it was heavier, thicker. She sat down slowly, exhaling through her nose. I'm sorry you had to see that, she whispered. I shook my head. I'm sorry he thinks he still owns the right to talk to you like that. Her lip twitched, not quite a smile, not quite a frown. You should go, she said finally, though her eyes didn't match the words. They lingered, softened, wavered. Before this gets more complicated. I stood, heart pounding, but I didn't move toward the door. Not yet. You almost reached for my hand again, I said quietly. She didn't deny it. Instead, her breath caught, tiny, involuntary. And then she looked up at me in a way that made the distance between us feel unbearably small. I know, she whispered. A confession. A surrender. A warning. All at once. She didn't look away. That was the part that unraveled me. Not her words, not the warning underneath them, but the way she kept her eyes on mine like she couldn't quite let go even if she wanted to. Why are you still here? She asked softly. I swallowed. You know why. Her fingers curled slightly on the table, the smallest tremor running through them. She didn't hide it this time. I told you this would get complicated, she said. And I told you I don't care. But I do, she whispered. The honesty landed between us like something sharp. She rose from her chair, walking toward the counter as if moving would steady her. It didn't. Her hands braced against the edge, shoulders tight. You don't understand what it costs me, she continued. What it would cost you? What? I stepped closer. What exactly am I not understanding? She shook her head, a frustrated, helpless motion. Everything. The age gap. The judgment. My daughter thinking I'm ridiculous for wanting anything. My ex thinking he still gets to decide how I live. You taking on something you shouldn't have to take on. You're not a burden. That's what worries me. Her voice cracked, one small note, barely audible, but it sliced through me. I hadn't expected it. I don't think she had either. I moved closer, stepped slow, giving her space to push me away. She didn't. The distance closed until I stood a breath behind her, enough to feel the rise and fall of her shoulders. We shouldn't be here, she murmured. Then tell me to leave. Her grip tightened on the counter. I've tried. So try again. She didn't. The silence was her answer. When she turned around, her eyes were brighter, not with tears exactly, but with a kind of fear that looked too much like wanting. You have no idea what you're doing to me, she said. Then tell me. She laughed once, breathless, bitter, almost a plea. You walk in here like you see right through me. Like I'm still someone worth looking at. You are. Stop, she said quickly. Don't say things like that. What? I stepped closer. Because they're true? Her chest rose sharply. I could see her fighting with herself, guilt on one side, desire clawing its way to the surface on the other. You think I don't notice? I said, the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching, the way you hesitate before you step back, the way you don't. Her voice was barely air. Her eyes were begging, but I couldn't tell if they were begging me to stop or to keep going. You almost kissed me earlier, I said. Her breath caught. Her jaw tensed. And for the first time, she didn't deny it. I can't want this, she whispered. But you do. She closed her eyes, long enough that I thought she'd push me away, tell me to grow up, remind me of everything stacked against us. But instead, she stepped closer. Her forehead nearly brushed mine. Don't make me choose, she breathed. I'm not, I whispered back. I'm asking you to be honest. Our breaths mingled. Her fingers lifted, hesitated, hovered near my jaw. 1 inch. Half an inch. We were a second away from something neither of us could undo. And then, the doorbell chimed. Someone walked in behind us. She froze. Her hand dropped, and everything stopped mid-sentence. The bell over the door rang, sharp enough to slice the moment in half. She flinched. I stepped back. The spell shattered. And then I heard the voice, uncertain, breathless, too young. Mom. Her daughter. I recognized her from the photos on the counter. A girl in her early 20s, college hoodie, messy bun, backpack hanging off one shoulder like she'd run here. My stomach dropped. Her daughter's eyes darted between us. Me standing too close, her mother's hand still half raised like she'd forgotten to pull it back fast enough. The silence between us wasn't neutral. It was charged, heated, impossible to disguise. Mom, she repeated louder now, what is this? Her mother's breath hitched, the quiet, frightened kind she hadn't shown even when her ex walked in earlier. It's not, she began quickly. But the girl shook her head, eyes narrowing, betrayal blooming fast. Tell me you're joking. I opened my mouth, but her mother shot me a look, a tiny shake of her head. Don't. I'm closing the cafe, her mother said calmly, too calmly. We can talk. You're seeing him? The girl's voice cracked. You're actually with someone my age? The words stung more than I expected. Her mother stepped forward. No, it's not like that. The girl laughed, short, disbelieving, broken. I walked in on you too, practically. She stopped herself, swallowing hard. I can't believe this. You're jumping to conclusions, her mother said. I'm not blind. Her mother flinched. The room felt too small, the air too sharp, every emotion amplified by the daughter's shock and her mother's guilt. I'm sorry you had to see this, her mother said, voice trembling now, but nothing happened. That's not the point. Her daughter's eyes glistened. Why him? Why someone young enough to be? She didn't finish. She didn't have to. My hands curled at my sides. I wanted to say something, explain, defend her, take the blame, anything. But the daughter wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at her mother like something inside her had cracked. "Dad warned me," she whispered. "He said you were getting reckless, that you were lonely enough to stop." Her mother's voice was soft but firm. "He doesn't get to tell you who I am." "Then who are you?" Her daughter's eyes finally turned toward me, sharp and full of disbelief. "And who are you to her?" I forced myself to breathe. "I'm just someone who cares about her." The girl's expression hardened. "Yeah, I figured." She took a step back. "I'm leaving," she said quietly. "And if you follow me, I swear I won't talk to either of you for a long time." Her mother reached out. "Please," but the girl was already walking out, the bell chiming again, softer this time, like even the door knew something devastating had happened. The silence that followed was different from every silence before, heavier, aching, almost echoing. Her mother stood frozen, hands still outstretched, breathing too fast. "I didn't want her to find out like that," she whispered. I stepped closer. "She'll calm down." "No." She shook her head, eyes shining now. "You don't understand. I wasn't honest with you." I blinked. "About what?" She swallowed, once hard, and her next words felt like a knife slipping between us. "I didn't tell you," she said slowly, "that she wasn't just suspicious." A pause. She already knew I had feelings for someone. My heartbeat stuttered, and she thought, her voice cracked. She thought it was her father. Everything inside me shifted. The stakes weren't just higher. The ground beneath us had tilted, and I wasn't sure what would come next. She didn't move for a long moment. Neither did I. Her confession hovered in the air between us, fragile and sharp at the same time, like glass catching light. She thought it was her father. I repeated quietly. She nodded once. Because it made sense to her. Because it was safe. Because no one would imagine it was someone like you. Someone younger. Someone unexpected. Someone she didn't feel she had the right to want. She finally sank into a chair, elbows on her knees, hands covering her mouth. Her breath trembled against her fingers. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "No," I said, stepping in front of her. "You didn't. You don't know her. She's stubborn. Protective. She thinks I make reckless choices when I'm lonely. And maybe I do." Her eyes lifted to mine raw. "But you're not a mistake. Not to me." Something cracked open inside me at that. Something I didn't know how to hide anymore. I sat across from her, leaning in. "Then why do you sound like you're saying goodbye?" She winced, the kind of wince people make when they hear a truth they weren't ready for. "I'm trying not to," she forced out. "I'm trying to understand how to keep the two parts of my life from tearing each other apart." "And?" I asked. She held my gaze, and for once she didn't look away. And I don't know how. The honesty hit me harder than any accusation could have. She wasn't running. She wasn't pretending. She was choosing to stand in the mess of everything. Her daughter's hurt, her own shame, my stubborn insistence, and admit she was lost. "Look," I said gently, "I don't want to be the reason things get worse. I don't want you losing your daughter because of me." "You're not the reason," she said, almost sharply. "The reason is that I kept pretending I didn't want anything for myself. Like my happiness was something I had to apologize for. And now," a long breath left her, like a decision forming not in words, but in the set of her shoulders. "Now, I want something." Her voice broke on it, and it scares me more than anything has in years. I reached out, slower this time, giving her a chance to pull away. She didn't. Her hand met mine halfway, her fingers trembling, mine steady only because I knew she needed them to be. "We don't have to decide everything tonight," I said quietly. "Not the future. Not what people think. Not even what this is." Her thumb brushed my palm, a small, broken, searching gesture. "And if your daughter never forgives me," she asked, "then I'll wait," I said. "With you. Not for you." Her eyes softened, not with relief, but with recognition. The kind people feel when they finally see themselves clearly in someone else. "That's not fair to you," she whispered. "It's not supposed to be easy," I replied. "But it's real." She exhaled, a shaky sound, but not a defeated one. More like grief and hope tangled together. Finally, she rose from her chair. "Walk me home," she said. A command, a request, a choice, all at once. And as we stepped outside into the cold night, her shoulder brushed mine, not by accident, not quite a promise, not yet certainty, but enough. We walked in silence at first. Not the tense kind from earlier, but the kind where two people are finally brave enough to share the same quiet. The night air was cool, crisp, and it made every breath feel clearer than the ones we'd taken inside the cafe. Her steps were slow, like she wasn't ready for the walk to end. Mine matched hers without thinking. Halfway down the block, she spoke. You know, she said softly, I used to love walking home at night. Before everything in my life felt like a task or a reminder of something I'd failed at. I looked at her. Does it feel like that now? She hesitated, then shook her head. No, not tonight. I didn't smile, but something warm settled in my chest anyway. A car passed us, headlights sweeping over her face. For a second, she looked younger, not because the lines disappeared, but because the weight did. All the heaviness she'd been carrying seemed to loosen in that brief wash of light. Her building came into view, the familiar brick steps, the small porch light she always left on. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and turned toward me, arms folded, not to close herself off, but to steady herself. This is the part, she said gently, where the smart thing to do is thank you for walking me home, and go inside alone. And what's the part you want to do? I asked. Her breath trembled again, the same way it had the moment before she almost touched my jaw back in the cafe. She stopped, eyes closing for a moment. When she opened them, she looked at me with a softness that felt like it belonged to the beginning of something. I want time, and honesty, and a chance to figure out what I'm allowed to want without feeling ashamed of it. I can give you that, I said. She stared at me, long, searching, almost like she expected me to take the words back. When I didn't, her shoulders relaxed. She stepped one stair up, making us eye level, and her hand brushed my sleeve. Just a brush, but enough to make my pulse jump. You really think this is real? She asked. I know it is. Her throat tightened, but not from fear this time. My daughter, she'll need space. I'll need space, but I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to go back to that version of myself. Then don't, I said. We'll take it slow. We'll let her come to terms with it, and we'll figure the rest out together. Together, she repeated, almost to herself. The word settled into the night with surprising ease. For a moment, she didn't move. The porch light hummed above us. The street was quiet, and her eyes lingered on mine with a question neither of us needed to say out loud. Finally, she nodded, a small, decisive motion. Good night, she whispered. But before she turned away, she did something she hadn't done earlier, something small but irreversible. She pressed her hand briefly to my chest, right over my heart, just long enough for me to feel it, just long enough for her to know I did. Then she stepped back, climbed the stairs, and slipped inside. The door clicked softly behind her. Not an ending, not exactly a beginning. Something in between, something real enough to wait for. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more emotional stories like this one.